Wow, those lights are bright. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I really want to thank Lynn McClure in particular for that kind introduction. I also want to thank all of the other co-chairs and partners of this conference. It's a real treat to be here, to be able to talk with you about Interior's recent Great Lakes restoration work. We are a proud partner with the rest of you in achieving success in Great Lakes restoration. I want to also congratulate all those on the Canadian and U.S. negotiation teams who successfully concluded the recent negotiation of the amendment to the Water Quality Agreement, which is a huge success. So let's give them all a round of applause. As Lynn mentioned, I am a native Chicagoan, and so Great Lakes restoration is important to me on a visceral level, as it is to many of you who grew up in the region who now live and work there. As Lynn also mentioned, I'm involved in other large-scale ecosystem restorations, such as that in the Everglades and now more recently in the Gulf of Mexico. And what I've come to appreciate through that work is that it's the people of the region who keep the restoration engines running. It is those people who live, work, play, and really appreciate the great resources we have in these ecosystems that really make this happen. So I thank all of you who are those people. I'd like to think of this large restoration effort as the big pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. We can all picture in our mind's eye what restoration of the Great Lakes looks like to us. And with each of these projects and with each year and each of these successes, we fill in another piece of that puzzle. So the theme of this year's conference, Take Action and Deliver Results, is fitting because we can see pieces of that puzzle being fit in. The 115 organizations of the HOW Coalition really demonstrate the 21st century approach to conservation, which is from a ground-up, grassroots level, protect the places and resources that we all value, achieve greater health and well-being as a society, and recognize the significant economic benefits we get from preserving and restoring our natural and cultural heritage. Looking at the numbers in the Great Lakes region, it's important to keep in mind that, of course, you all know these statistics by heart. The Great Lakes supplies drinking water to 30 million people, hosts annually 9.2 million anglers, 4.6 million hunters, 23 million bird watchers, and 4 million recreational boats, representing many million more boating trips. It's no exaggeration to say that these activities contribute billions of dollars to the regional economy. So we can be reminded once again how important Great Lakes restoration is. Again, the fundamental principles of restoration include taking a really 21st century approach, using technology to communicate to users of the Great Lakes about all of the opportunities so that people can participate directly in the restoration and get better access to the land and waters, to give everybody an opportunity to share for future generations to come in the wonders of the Great Lakes. And when I think about growing up on Lake Michigan, there were many days, and many of you probably remember these days, where there were lots of dead fish washed upon the shore. My nieces and nephews now who live in the Chicago area, they don't experience that. So we can feel in our lifetime these tangible results. And by bringing younger people back to the Great Lakes and its tributaries, they too can appreciate those results. If you look on the slide up there, the bottom left slide is a picture of children on a fishing expedition, the Detroit River. So who would have imagined, when many of us were young, that would have even been possible? The other thing that you do as partners is leverage our scarce dollars. We, especially now, need that leveraging because dollars will be scarce. Having said that, it is your efforts and your advocacy that has helped provide federal funding that is the catalyst for many of these restoration efforts. In fiscal year 2012, the President and Congress funded nearly $300 million for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, but of course, the various federal agencies who participate in Great Lakes restoration added more to that, hundreds of millions more actually, to address invasive species, toxic contamination from legacy pollution, nearshore and coastal improvement, and habitat restoration, and all of it in a strategic and collaborative manner. At Interior, where Secretary Salazar is committed to Great Lakes restoration, in fiscal year 12, we invested an additional $72 million in restoration of the Great Lakes, and we're committed to, at Interior, to continue to invest in 2013 and beyond. Our bureaus, such as the U.S. Geological Survey, National Park Service, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, have a very strong on-the-ground presence in the Great Lakes region, have done so much to help in the restoration. I'm going to give a few examples because I know you're all anxious to get to your breakout sessions. But, for example, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, together with other public and private partners, are implementing more than 200 projects which have thus far resulted in reopening more than 1,500 miles of river for fish passage and restoring and enhancing over 30,000 acres of wetlands, uplands, islands, all that support more than 50 aquatic populations of lake trout and whitefish to self-sustaining levels in the Great Lakes. The Fish and Wildlife Service more recently has contributed to funding in Illinois and Indiana to support the new Millennium Reserve Project, which is taking an area of the south side of Chicago in the Calumet region that used to be home to many heavy industrial practices, and it's going to be turned into a huge, terrific wetland reserve and park that will connect, we hope, in the future all the way to the Indiana Dunes someday. But bit by bit, we'll hope to get there. In the meantime, Fish and Wildlife Service has contributed $370,000 to the Chicago Park District to restore native habitat for songbirds along a 3.6-mile stretch of Lake Michigan. The Fish and Wildlife Service really recently worked with Bureau of Indian Affairs and other federal, state, and tribal organizations to remove the Brown Bridge Dam just south of Traverse City, Michigan. And removal of this dam will restore a natural river flow to more than 150 miles of the Boardman River, which is one of Michigan's premier blue ribbon trout streams. In northeastern Ohio, right here, Fish and Wildlife Service is working collaboratively with many conservation partners and 5 counties, Ducks Unlimited, the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, and the Western Reserve Land Conservancy to permanently conserve 2,000 acres of valuable wetland habitat, which will sustain breeding populations of migratory waterfowl and provide additional recreational opportunities to the public. The National Park Service has several park units here right in the Great Lakes region, and these park units serve as anchors to a healthy ecosystem. The nature of the Park Service is that there could be no impairment. So Park Service can really serve as places where we can experience what true restoration will look like. And Park Service, besides preserving these areas, also promote cutting-edge restoration of sand dunes and river systems and native species that will all serve to strengthen the biological integrity of the Great Lakes region. In particular, at the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore, the Park Service has been working with the Shirley Hines Lands Trust, the Town of Dune Acres, and the Nature Conservancy and NPCA to restore the wetlands of the Great Marsh, which is Lake Michigan's largest interdunal wetland. And so far, this is going to potentially be a 350-acre project. 50 acres have already been completed through leveraging resources. And we're seeing immediate results. Plant diversity is returning, and the wetland character of the area is returning. All of this helps to purify the water, control flooding, and restore critical habitat for many species. So we're seeing action, and we're seeing results. The Park Service is also undergoing planning for the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore and has been engaged in an extensive public outreach to inform that planning to restore natural sand and river flow along the 15-mile shoreline of the park which of course has been altered by decades of industrial use. Next year, we're going to be ready to put that planning into action so that we will eliminate the need for continual beach renourishment through this effort. The U.S. Geological Survey is one of the world's premier science organizations, and we're very proud that they are a bureau within the Department of the Interior. With research stations and science centers in each of the Great Lakes states, USGS provides critical data to further our understanding of the Great Lakes environment. In particular, USGS has continued to work to help eradicate and monitor Asian carp migration, and using physical and chemical control tools. And while we're on the subject of Asian carp, I also must commend Fish and Wildlife Service's cutting-edge dual-frequency identification sonar technology, which is also contributing to prevent Asian carp migration. USGS is also on the cutting edge of addressing mercury contamination in the Great Lakes by identifying the exposure pathways by which mercury enters the food chain and helping determine how mercury affects fish populations, which have huge implications, obviously, for public health. Finally, USGS's survey stream gauge networks collect real-time flow and water quality data to help the decision makers prioritize which watersheds should be restored and at what time and what strategies should we use to measure success and to reduce contaminants. The Bureau of Indian Affairs works very closely with the area's many tribes and tribal organizations who are very active participants in Great Lakes restoration. The Great Lakes tribes in 2010 and 2011 restored and enhanced almost 103,000 acres of wetlands, prairies, and upland habitat. And BIA has provided an additional $4 million in 2012 funding for more restoration of tribal resources. The sturgeon is very important to local Indian cultures, and the tribes have conducted restoration and that provide better passage on 375 miles of waterways within the Great Lakes area through the use of Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding, and this has helped enhance sturgeon populations. And there you go, bottom right, there's a picture of a big sturgeon recently taken, so there you go. I just want to point out a couple of the other photos there in the top left. That's the Lake Erie shoreline. Look at that, how beautiful, along Painesville and Perry Townships in Ohio. And on the top right is the Chagrin River in Ohio, also in a beautifully restored meandering state with lots of beautiful riparian vegetation. So those are just a couple of examples. There are so many more of the pieces of that puzzle that we put together so that we can realize the full picture of Great Lakes restoration. This Healing Our Waters and Great Lakes Coalition Conference really provides a terrific opportunity for everybody to come together, measure success, because we should always applaud our success. We work very hard at this, and keep thinking about ideas that we can work together in the future to make sure that we continue to do what we've already done, which is take action and deliver results. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.